Good morning, viewers. Today we look at how we can add value when we do Form 9 and 9C. There is a bit of analysis behind this, which is based on the experience of the audits done for the past 2 years. ITC happens to be one of the biggest transactions in GST because the net GST which is paid, which is expected to be around 1 lakh crores a month, is after taking deduction of ITC, which could be at least 3 times that much, which means that it could be 3 lakh crores. Any mistake there obviously would have a dramatic impact on any SSC. So we specifically restrict this discussion to the ITC part of the Form 9 and 9C. In which forms can ITC value addition come? Number one, when we do the work properly, after coming from a point of good knowledge of GST, ensuring all the checks and balances are put in place, ensuring that we have looked at the internal controls, avoiding dispute and demands after years, which will be obviously with interest and penalty, would be the top of the list. So if you have done things properly, you'll avoid or reduce the disputes and demands to a minimal extent. GST is an evolving law, therefore compliance may be different during different periods, and we have to ensure that we are complying with the evolving law. While the promise of GST was seamless credit, but we have some restrictions based on our procedural compliances, as well as some restrictions within the law itself, where certain credits are blocked and certain credits are not eligible to be taken. Certain credits need to be reversed if we have taxable and non-taxable supplies. It is also dependent on vendor-related non-compliance. Some more value addition can come in the doubtful transactions, where there is a possibility of credit being allowed in future depending on case laws. Prompt payment to vendors, that is within 180 days, itself could be deferred if known, and we can avoid interest on that. Prompt claims of refund, because money is money. The faster you get your refund, the faster you put it into your business. The delay in claiming refund would also result in delay of the money coming in. Wherever interest is delayed, the claim of interest for the delay after specified time is available under law. Are we claiming that? There are a lot of reversals which are eligible for recredit, which at times, due to the systems not being in place and being dependent on the person alone who is doing the compliance, this could be missed. GST has led to a large number of case laws. Some of the case laws, especially in ITC, have been in favor of the taxpayer. These benefits are also to be ensured to be taken by our clients. What are the types of errors in ITC? There could be 3 types of errors as I see. The first type of error is conceptual error, where my understanding of the law, my understanding of when tax credits can be taken, when they require to be reversed, which ITC I should take, are some of the conceptual errors I can think of. Later, I might have to reverse this with interest and penalty. For this, in this presentation, we have provided 25 illustrations. How can this be mitigated? This can be mitigated. That is, the conceptual errors can be mitigated by ensuring that we have a basic training for the procurement team. Very important, I'm repeating, for the procurement team and the accounts team. They have to understand the fundamentals of ITC, from where it comes. For example, ITC is said to be a right, a vested right which the taxpayer has, which cannot be removed unless there are specific provisions to limit it. Also, due to the evolving nature of GST, maybe the updated position of the law of ITC should be explained and understood by the people involved, procurement and accounts. And yearly there should be an update, because there could be many changes which happen, and this update should happen before August of every year, because we have this 9 and 9C time limit in September. If you're doing it earlier, then this date has to be earlier. In the initial 2-3 years, maybe an ITC audit by an expert who knows audit, who understands your business and knows GST very well can be thought of. It could be part of an internal audit, or it could be a separate GST review audit. Here I would like to mention that these type of audits are not costs at all. Invariably, they result in huge value addition, which could be multiple times the cost involved. The second type of error in ITC are the system errors. We have not followed proper systems. We either don't have any system and depend on the individual, or we are unorganized. Whenever we have a doubt, we call up some other person, whether he is an expert or not, and we follow that. The following of incorrect system also can lead to some leakage of the ITC which you are eligible for. It could also lead to exposure if you are unnecessarily very aggressive. There could also be delay, and which causes loss. Here again, we provide 25 illustrations. The mitigation for the system errors is to have a standard operating procedure for ITC to be put in place and staff trained. We have a standard operating procedure for cash. And if I look at the total amount of cash dealings in a company, it may be hardly 1%. Whereas as far as ITC is concerned, it will be 12% on an average. Therefore, a SOP is necessary to capture and ensure that the 12% of my turnover is correctly understood and no mistakes are made there. The SOP needs to be updated because of changes, and the staff on amendments. This also should be done 1 month before the 9 or 9C exercise. The third type of error which comes up is the error in reconciliation. Now, the errors in reconciliation could be in stages. For example, the reconciliation of the tax credits in the system. I have a ERP system, or I have a software system, and the books. The difference between that itself could be there. Later, as far as 9 and 9C is concerned, between the books and the returns we see. But what about between the system and the books itself? Have we missed out something? Have we taken some excess credits? From the books to the computation, because we normally have an internal computation, maybe in Excel, which is kept. So there is one more reconciliation which is required before we come to the reconciliation of books to the returns, or to the computation to the returns. After that, there is also reconciliation which is required under 9 and 9C, returns to the GSTR 2A. This last part I have not included in the presentation because that comes in your 9 and 9C reports itself. Only the first two which do not come in the form, which is, I would say, much more important than what is there in the form, as far as ensuring no errors and all benefits taken. Let's examine the 25 illustrations which we have. The major conceptual errors, I would say, are the 25 which I have listed. These are not in any way prioritized. I have put it as I've thought about it today. The first thing is ITC on obligatory payments. Those payments which are required under law. For example, with the COVID pandemic, insurance has become compulsory. And once it is compulsory, it's required under the law. I am eligible for the tax credit on the insurance. Rental of car, it's not our car, it's of car. Where there is a requirement by the government itself that people should be safely transported from their homes to the office and back. In such cases also we can take. Anyway, as you are aware here, more than 13-seater anyway is eligible. Goods provided as a part of CSR. CSR has become a part mandate, 2% to those companies where it's applicable is mandated under law. You have to do the CSR, otherwise you would be found wanting. Food and beverages are also restricted under GST. However, there are companies where it is compulsory, where because of the number of people, type of industry, food has to be provided by the employer. Wherever there are obligatory payments, we need to confirm and avail the credit. We need not avoid availing this credit. This is a conceptual error we have found in many of the cases. There is also a common mistake that credit on samples and promotional material is not available. This is incorrect in law. There is also a provision under 17(5) which talks about gifts. Gift, if we have to understand the legal meaning, is something done without expectation of any return. Are gifts given in business without expectation of something in return? Gifts invariably are given in the course of business to have good relationship with the employees, to have good relationship with the vendors, good relationship with the customers, etc. Promotional material directly which goes to the distribution channel, either to the super stockist or the distributor or the retailer. These are all material which are used to enhance the sales. Obviously, it is a part of business. Therefore, the need to reverse ITC on samples or gifts in the course of business and promotional material is not there. This is a common misconception. Many times the reimbursements are made to employees for business related expenditure where an advance would be given to him, and when he clears the advance, it comes through a journal entry. It does not go through the normal purchase route. These are sometimes, the credit on these are sometimes missed, even though the invoices which are there are having the GSTIN number of the company and it is in the course of business. It has been received and it is used in the course of business. Reimbursement to CHAs or any other agent where they give a bill in which they claim the GST on what they are charging, plus they also claim reimbursements. If I look at a CHA bill, the CHA bill may have total expenditure of 10 lakhs and the CHA is only charging 20,000 rupees as his charge. That 20 lakhs which he claims as reimbursement may have 3 lakhs of GST, which is eligible to you. That also needs to be captured. Otherwise, in normal course, due to accounting gaps, this may be missed. Sometimes the reverse charge mechanism ITC is missed out to be paid also and credit to be availed also. Sometimes there's a gap between the two. Many times the bill would be booked. RCM, the bill on which I have to pay the RCM would have been booked at the time I received it. But as far as GST payment is concerned, it is happening only at the time of payment, which is not in line with the law. However, then only the credit is eligible. But am I having a RICO of that? Have I got a system by which I capture this? Do I always pay it? If I'm an export oriented company, say I'm a software developer and I receive some software development services from outside India, I am liable under RCM. But I don't pay it because anyway I'm exporting, I'm going to claim the refund. This is not acceptable under law at present, unless they make such provision for the same. It is not exempted. So I need to pay the RCM and then claim the credit and claim the refund of that accumulated credit. Remember that whenever I have delayed the RCM payment as per the time of supply, I might have to pay the RCM on receipt of the invoice. If there's a 6-month delay, then I'm going to pay 18% on that 6 months. This is a loss to the system. Nobody gains because once I pay under RCM, I'm eligible for the credit. Again, I am in this entire presentation, I am talking about that SSE who is paying the GST on his supplies. One more place where we have seen errors happening is on stock transfer. Anyway, it is between related companies. It doesn't get recorded in the financials. It's only a GST invoice which is being raised. And because it's only a GST invoice which is being raised, the credit on the other side is not taken. It is not, since it's not recorded in the books, it doesn't get captured also. Auditors also come when they do a normal audit. They are not going to do the audit of those transactions which are not recorded in the books. If it comes only in GST, they will simply look at the reconciliation and say reconciliation should be done. Sometimes, depending on the industry, depending on the way in which the processes are done, goods can get lost or stolen. For example, in the real estate industry, I understand 1 or 2% is always taken as pilferage possibility. But under the law, if the goods are stolen or lost, then you need to reverse the GST on that portion. There is also a provision which says that when I write off my inventory, write off means 100% written off. In such cases also, I have to reverse the GST. If I have not reversed, then after a few years, I would have to pay the GST with 24% interest, because for ITC, the rate of interest is 24% and not 18%. This can be substantial. If it is after 4 years, it will almost be equal to 100%. ITC reversed on inventory written down. This is the other side of that inventory. If I have written down inventory, instead of every year I find some slow moving stocks, first year I write off 20%, second year I write off 50%, third year I write off 90%, fourth year I write off 99%. But have I written it off fully? No, I have written it down, or I might have made a provision for it. If I have done either of these and those are in stock and can be used if needed, there is no need to reverse the ITC on this. There is also a draconian provision in the GST law where if I have availing credit, then I need to avail credit within the year and no later than September of the next year. So if I look at for 18-19, I should have taken the credit by September 19, which is long past. As of now, we are in September 20. For the year 18-19 or 17-18, some credits missed out. Then what happens? These credits normally we reverse. My suggestion is please reverse the credit. Reverse it in under protest, saying that it is a vested right, and in case of any case law development in the future, you would like to avail the credit. Similarly, there could be many actions based on case law development. For example, there was a case law which said that the date for availing transitional credit was 27 December, and that date has gone. In spite of the fact that the date has gone by, courts have held that if you have made an attempt to upload and you have the proof of that, then you are eligible for the credit, even if the portal does not allow. You can take manual credit. So what happens in such cases? In such cases also, I would suggest that you avail the credit and reverse under protest till clarity of the law is there in each aspect. I given you one example. There are many other examples. For example, inverted duty structure, VKC judgment. This was a decision, correct decision, wherein the Gujarat High Court observed that the credit of input services also should be given and not denied, in spite of the fact that there was an explanation inserted denying this in Rule 36(4). They held it to be illegal or ultra vires. In the Safari Retreat decision in 2019 of the Orissa High Court, it was held that cement and steel credit could be taken. Now these decisions have a far-reaching impact, because if you have not taken the credit of cement and steel and you have put up a factory worth 100 crores, possibly you are losing out. Maybe I'm talking about 100 crores of factory building. You may be losing out approximately around 20 crores of credit. Can any company lose when you are using this building for the supply of taxable products? So I would like to keep the benefit alive. So here also I would like to take the credit and reverse it under protest, or take the credit and not utilize it. There is also sometimes a trend in the past law that the department comes heavily on the SSCs to reverse the credits based on oral or even email sent without a proper show cause notice. There is no requirement for you to reverse unless you are very clear that yes, the reversal is required. But I have seen that 90% of the cases, wherever there is a need for reversal, it will be in writing, show cause notice will be issued, and many times it's just a frivolous, target-driven reversal instruction by the revenue. In such cases, you should not reverse. This is also a cardinal error done to buy peace. But you buy peace and you lose your margin. That you should be aware of. There is even one more bigger dragon in this indirect tax called the Director General of GST Intelligence. Now this DGGI is somebody who comes with a lot of authority, normally with some information, but you may not be involved. You may be just the receiver of some document or issuer of some document which is genuine. If the supplier has done some hanky-panky, why should you reverse the tax? For example, your landlord has not paid the taxes, then why you should be paying the taxes? Anyway, they are going after the landlord and they will take the interest from him. Then why you should reverse it? As per present law, since there is no facility for me to come to know whether my supplier has paid the taxes and his compliances are in order, this facility is not available in the portal, and therefore expecting me to ensure this is impossible. Therefore, such type of reversals also need not be made. Many of the SSEs have not understood the input service distributor concept, and they have not used it at all. Some of them have got registered as input service distributor, but are incorrectly using the input service distributor facility. They don't transfer it back to the related unit, and the common ones they don't share as per turnover. Even if there is an exempted unit, you need to share the ISD to the exempted unit also. These type of errors are all very common. There's a lot of confusion between cross charge and ISD in the industry. This is something you need to be clear about, because instead of ISD, if you use cross charge, tomorrow there may be a denial. Instead of cross charge, if you have used ISD, again there could be a problem. These are all problems which will come up in future. If you comply with it right in the beginning, there won't be a problem. I have multi-locational branches, and I have accumulation of ITC in one branch and cash payment in another branch continuously for a long period. There is something wrong in the way you are working. Possibly the cross charge is not being done properly, and if so, correct it so that you don't have this possibility that you have ITC sitting but not utilizable, even though legally it could have been done if you had followed the correct procedure. Some of us are having significant imports. Now in 2019, the government came up with a scheme where I need not pay the custom duty, plus I need not pay the IGST on imports till I supply the goods in the local market. If I'm a manufacturer, I will use it in my production, and then I will supply the resultant product. And as far as a trader is concerned, it may just be lying in stock. I will supply it when the demand comes. Now this imported goods, this particular scheme is very useful. There is a little of paperwork obviously involved. You need to get your warehouse registered, and you need to ensure compliance. You need to keep certain records, which are like the earlier records which used to be kept under central excise. So this is something which can save you substantial amount of cash flow, and working capital can be better utilized. Import of services, as I mentioned little earlier, sometimes we are missing out on this, and also sometimes we pay RCM where the place of service is outside India. So we have to understand where the place of supply is. If we understand that, we will pay RCM accurately, and we will not miss paying RCM when it is due. Remember, I pay the RCM and I am eligible for credit. So no point in delaying this. But we have seen crores of rupees missed for years together, and then there is a possibility that because of time limitation, I may not get the credit, or the credit could be disputed for years to come. Transitional credits, wherever we have reversed it as our application was not processed or rejected, in all these cases, we have to keep the transitional credit alive. We need not reverse it, and we should make an application to the department that we had applied for it. Portal did not allow. We have intimated you. We have sent a message to the help desk, and therefore we are asking you to allow us manually this credit. This particular letter is very important if you have got any such applications pending. Sometimes under the law, there are some, what I would say, aberrations. Like there was a limitation when I took the initial credit for my stocks in hand. There was a limitation that any invoice beyond 1 year, I cannot take the credit. But this is an illegal claim, because it is a right which had already accrued to me in the past. How can that be avoided or negated? So even in such cases, even if you have reversed, please reverse under protest. That is, you reverse only when the department comes to you. Otherwise, this matter could be disputed, I would say. ITC availed due to case law development. I already talked about Orissa High Court decision. Payment is uniform for compliant as well as non-compliant vendors. Is this fair? There's a vendor who complies with the entire law. You don't have any problem in availing credit. There's another vendor who has a lot of problem. There may be valid reasons. He may have cash flow problem. His bank loan might have been rejected, whatever. COVID, his margins got contracted. There are many reasons why a vendor may not pay the tax. So can we have a system to bifurcate between A, B, C category of vendors based on compliance, so that for A and B, I may make payment on receipt of the invoice in due course as per the understanding. And for a non-compliant vendor, I will only pay the GST a part of it. The basic part of it. The GST part of it, I'll keep it pending. Only when it comes in my 2A, I will pay. This is something which can be thought of to protect ourselves. Many times I have seen companies over a period of time, they find procurement from the unregistered suppliers or composition dealers easy. And the proportion of procurement from this may be 10% of the total procurement. Remember, if it is 10%, then 1.8% you have already lost because you do not get credit. There is possibility that you can educate the vendor to register under a regular scheme so that the ITC chain is not broken. Without him losing any money, you can get the goods at 1.8%, 18% cheaper, not 1.8. If I am I am an exporter, then the decision on whether to go under letter of undertaking where I don't pay any duty, or I go on paying duty by utilizing my credit, is an important decision. I would recommend always payment of GST as the better option because it does not bring in any subjectiveness. However, in some circumstances, we may have to go under the LUT method. Though not a GST matter, there's a huge value possible for all these exporters, manufacturing exporters service scheme, incentive scheme, and service exporters incentive scheme provide 2 to 7% benefit to the exporters. They can also make these claims for a period of time. Past years also is possible with a cut. Those of you who have not made this may like to make this claim. Remember, today the system of getting refund under either GST or the foreign trade can be done without payment of any bribes or any percentages. Therefore, even the true professionals are only charging for their time now. No percentages, 5%, 10% is all not there, because it is more or less automatic as long as you have made the correct application, ensured proper details provided. So many of the industries in the past, exporters, used to pay professional fees based on quantum of refund. Remember, when you do this, you are building in delay because the professional wants you to be in a quandary all the time. He wants his huge percentage. Even if he says that the departmental officer is taking 5%, 8%, actually he may not be taking more than 1 or 2%. Therefore, he keeps you on tenterhooks and is not very transparent with you because of the huge amount of fees. Whereas if only time-based fee is paid, possibly my understanding is that your refunds will come faster. These are the major conceptual errors where you would agree I have shown you that value addition is possible. Let us look at systems. Remember, system errors are very, very important because these errors keep happening unless you go back and rectify the system. That is why we had recommended in the starting that there should be a standard operating procedure which should be put in place for systems. Let us look at 25 such errors. The biggest error I have observed is the accounting method of ITC is in some cases debit on the gross to expense or capital goods, and in the month end entry is passed for ITC as per some Excel. I have seen in the 25 years or so, no 30 years of audit I have done in central excise, service tax, and now in GST. I have seen that invariably this system leads to leakage. There are a lot of gaps because that Excel will not cover everything. It will be done based on the memory of the person who's doing it. It is done in rough. It is not verified. It is not verifiable also, because when the auditors check, they will find that the total amount of credit which has been taken in the books is equal to the credit which has been taken in the returns. Because I have first of all not taken some credits at all. Maybe 20% credits I have missed out. Very, very big error if somebody is doing this. Ideally, when the initial entry is passed, you should say debit capital goods 100 rupees and debit GST ITC recoverable 18 rupees. To the creditor 118 rupees. This is the entry for either capital goods or for your expenses, inputs or expenses, wherever GST is applicable. This probably is the single biggest error I have observed in the systems. Sometimes we have systems where ITC is taken on invoices, not on receipts. This could lead to some problem because there could be some short receipt, which tomorrow will be found out. There could be some non-receipt, which could also be there. There could be some receipts not to you directly, but indirectly to your agent, job worker in the bill to ship to transaction, in which case these invoices would be kept aside by the stores, may be kept aside by the accounts. Sometimes it is people are availing ITC only on GST or 2A entries. It is catastrophic because 2A does not capture everything as of date. Recently, they have included imports also. Otherwise, earlier it was not even capturing imports. What about the dealers who are filing their returns once in 3 months? That is not captured in the GSTR 2A. It will come after 3 months. What about those who make mistakes in uploading their GSTR 1? Instead of uploading in your GSTIN, they upload in somebody else's GSTIN. Instead of uploading as B2B, they upload it as B2C. This is all supplier's defaults. Supplier's default need not lead to your loss. So we should ensure that ITC is taken on invoices and receipt. GSTR 2A is only a depicting entry to confirm and have no problems. In all the ship to build to transaction, constructive receipt is there when the branch receives the material or the agent receives the material or the job worker receives the material. Are we taking credit then, or are we taking credit after everything is reconciled? Maybe I have missed out taking credit for 4 months. There is a provision, again a draconian provision, that in case you don't make payment in 180 days, you are supposed to reverse the ITC along with interest. Now, whether you should debit the interest or not, I do not know, but you need to reverse the tax for sure. Many people reverse the tax and later they depend on memory to take the recredit. This particular reversal should be put into a memorandum account, which is quarterly being reconciled to see that Wherever you have subsequently made the payments, recredit is taken promptly. As I said, there should be a continuous evaluation of vendors because vendors' non-compliance will lead to dispute. Now, no reconciliation of cross-charge and ISD because everything is within the company. This has to be done. Sometimes these amounts could be quite significant because of the type of movement of goods within branches and also back to the head office, etc. Here you have to ensure that the cross charge which is charged by entity A to entity B in a different state, entity B has taken the credit. So like the banks have a system, there should be a responding system. That means the person who debits it should have a system by which the credit should be automatically confirmed, only then he should close that memorandum account. Otherwise it should be open. Banks use this very well, and I'm sure if you wish to get it done, you can talk to your chartered accountant, he will suggest to you. As far as capital goods credit is concerned, even though I capitalize the capital goods, what is it that I capitalize is important. Say I bought one capital goods for 1,18,000 is the GST on that. I cannot capitalize it for 118 and avail the income tax depreciation on 118. I need to only take it on 100. In the initial stage, I said if you pass proper entries, this type of problem will not come. Where at the point of entry itself, capital goods will be debited only 1 lakh and not 1,18,000. In such cases, this will be avoided. This double benefit is not allowed. If you have taken the double benefit, then credit could be denied at a later point of time. Some of the times we find that whenever you are working within your entity, the invoices are raised incorrectly. For example, the supply of services is from Mumbai, but invoice is raised by Bangalore on the client. Now this type of issues are going to have substantial problems. At least within ourselves, we can at least raise that invoice from Mumbai to Bangalore for onward invoicing to the customer, so that the credit tomorrow will not be denied. Otherwise, what can happen is the credit is not utilized in that GSTIN number, then there could be a problem. We have found totally around 22 different permutation and combinations, and 22 may not be the limit, it could be much more. When various types of transactions are taken place because of various entities. The marketing normally is not really knowing the implication of the raising of invoices from different places, but sometimes they do it to meet the targets or to meet the needs of the customer. There you may get into a lot of difficulty, and ITC may be restricted and you may lose the ITC. In this stage when pandemic is going on, and also in normal course of business, whenever competition peaks, the credit notes are issued wherein GST is involved. For example, I have raised total of 10 crores of invoices on my distributor in Lucknow. And now that goods are not moving, he is said, goods are not moving, sir. And you have given him a credit note for say 25 lakhs or 25 crores, whatever it is. You have also put GST on that. Can you take the credit of this GST? You can't take the credit of GST unless that vendor, that is that distributor, that Lucknow person has reversed the GST to that extent. And this would be reflected in 2A. Should be reflected in 2A provided he again uploads properly. So this is also something which is very important. Many people based on credit notes, they take the credit and vendor does not reverse. Tomorrow vendor is in problem. He reverses the credit, he pays the interest. Department comes to you, and since you have reversed, you will have to pay the interest. What? All this is unnecessary if we comply with the law. Sometimes, as a measure of abundant caution, many of the SSCs, they take ITC based on GSTR 2A. This is, I would say, downright stupid, because 2A doesn't capture all the credits. There are 4, 5, 10 reasons why some credit may not come in 2A. And also, whatever comes in 2A does not mean it is your credit. Say there is a fake invoice being issued by somebody, and by mistake he has transposed a number, and that number is yours, and it comes in your GSTR 2A, and you avail the credit. Tomorrow, let me tell you, you will be hauled up and even arrested, because how will you prove that you have not taken, you are not conniving with him, not abetting with him, because you have taken the credit. You're supposed to verify whether it's your credit, whether you have to verify whether you have received it. Blindly taking credit can put you into a lot of problem. Most of us are only providing taxable supplies, but some of us may be providing taxable and exempt supplies, in which case I am supposed to reverse on a monthly basis. Formulas have been prescribed. And for this, once in a year, after the year end is over, the final adjustment of the ITC taken, excess or short, has to be done. If you have taken excess, obviously you will pay the interest beyond a particular period. And if you have paid, if you have taken it short, you can just avail it. But this has to be done. If you have not done it, again you are exposing yourself to either a demand or a loss of credit. Purchase returns are also part of the business. Sometimes after it is coming into the inventory and issued for production, some defect is found and the whole batch is returned to the supplier. In such cases, you need to reverse the GST ITC. If you have not taken that, if you have not reversed it, tomorrow you will be liable for interest also. I have also observed in the earlier era as well as in the GST era that when we send tools and dies to the job worker, and for the time being they are not required because some change in the production is there, the capital good, tools, dies, patterns is sitting with the job worker. Should it be sitting with the job worker? Then the job worker goes out of your system. Tomorrow he can give your competitor the parts using your capital goods. In one of the companies where we did this work in Tamil Nadu, we found that more than 47 crores of such tools and dies were lying with the job workers. And many of the job workers are no longer traceable. Remember, under GST, if you do not receive the capital goods within a period of 2 years plus extended period, you are required to reverse the GST on that capital goods. The reversal of inputs also similarly is there for 1 year and 2 years. If the job worker is responsible, debit of irrecoverable interest should be done on the job worker if the job worker is responsible for that. Are we doing that? Further, the system errors could be, I have reversed, but I am not tracking it for recredit. That is, when as and when I received it from the job worker, I have not claimed the credit, though I reversed it. Refund claim I have talked about. Inverted duty structure, please claim in time. Department may have 100 reasons why they won't accept your refund claim. As far as you can do it online, please do it. If you can't do it online, please go ahead and make a manual application. Make claim in time, as I said earlier, and wherever you need to follow up, please follow up on record and always escalate if the period is getting more, because the refund is your money, not the department's money which it is giving you out. It's not a dole, it is your right. Wherever there is a delay, claim for interest. This would also make the department accountable. Sometimes non-integration of ERPs to software to the returns, as I mentioned earlier, is possible. One of the biggest system errors which happens in especially in MSME, where they have an outsourced consultant who does the uploading of the returns. He does it without verification of the records. So whatever figure you give, he does some small verification and then he uploads. If you put garbage into the system, you're going to get a garbage result. One more major system error I have observed is that there is no maker checker at the first point of entry recording. Entry recordings today have become very important because after that you may not verify it at all until and unless the audit is done or there is some internal audit system in place. I've also seen that though GST accounts for almost 30% of the turnover, 18% outward liability, 12% inward credit, totally 30%. There's hardly any analysis of this which goes to the top management. Probably even the CFO does not see in many of the cases, though this is such a significant amount. So therefore, there has to be some analytics and MIS going to the top management. With this, we have completed 25 conceptual and 25 system errors which you can avoid. And I would like to thank you for your listening. If you wish, there are many more detailed presentations, videos, articles on Hirigangan Academy, which is a knowledge and employability initiative in which I am also involved as a major, you can say, contributor. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.